Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. My name is Nicole Nickerson, and I am the College Access and FAFSA Outreach Manager for NCSEAA. And I am joined this evening with Timothy Sampson, who is the Financial Aid Director at UNC Pembroke. Timothy, I'm going to allow you to introduce yourself and maybe a little bit about what you do on a daily basis, and we'll go ahead and start with the presentation.
Sounds great. Can you hear me?
I can.
All right. Good evening, everyone. Again, like was already said, my name is Timothy Sampson. I am the Director of Financial Aid and Scholarships here at the University of North Carolina at Pembroke. I have 10 years worth of financial aid experience and background in financial aid. Financial aid is my life. I love financial aid. So one of my goals is, and what I love to do, is assist students and helping them create their dreams or get their dreams by giving them financial aid and be able to assist them going through school. So I'm glad and excited to be here, and I'm excited to answer any questions and talk through this presentation.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. So if you do have questions throughout this presentation, please feel free to drop them in the question box. No one can see your questions but the organizers, who are myself and Timothy. And as soon as you drop the questions in the box, we will pause and be sure to answer the questions as best as we can. And if for whatever reason we are not able to answer those questions, we'll make sure to get your contact information and email you directly after this presentation. So this evening, we're going to talk about federal student aid, state student aid, institutional aid, and scholarship from other sources. And so what you will see, or what you will hear tonight, is a bit of a back and forth between Timothy and I as I ask him questions about financial aid as a whole throughout this presentation. So Timothy, a question that at least I receive fairly consistency is, what is financial aid? And then going down, how do I know the difference between a grant, a work study, a loan, or scholarship? Is there an easy way to answer that question? What are the differences between these four types of financial aid?
So first of all, that's a kind of easy and hard question at the same time, depending on what school you go to and what school, how they lay out their award letters for a student. So first of all, what is financial aid? Financial aid is assistance to help you pay for college. It is aid. It can be federal aid, state aid, institutional aid. All those fall under the umbrella of financial aid. So anything that goes through the financial aid office and is awarded to a student is considered financial aid. Like I said, it can come from all different types of sources. So the one thing that I tell folks is that make sure, if you don't know if you're eligible for something, just please fill out a FAFSA and make sure that no matter what your background is, no matter what your parents' background is, just complete a FAFSA, because that can open up gates or open up doors for you to be able to get different types of aid at the university or college that you're going to. At the University of North Carolina at Pembroke, we separate those grants and scholarships. We call that under our self-help aid umbrella. Not self-help, yeah, self-help aid. So that's our free tuition, our grant aid that we give you that don't have to be paid back. So the easy way I can tell you that is that for grants and hello.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. The easy way I can tell you that is grants and scholarships are money that you don't have to pay back. Again, that's aid we give you automatically when you are able, or when you complete your FAFSA, because it's funding you're eligible for. Work study and loans is what we call self-help aid. So the self-help aid is able for you to do something to get that funding. So as far as work study is concerned, work study is where you work on campus to be able to get funding from your school and work on campus and get paid every 2 weeks like you would a normal job. And then of course loans is loans that you get from the federal government that everyone is eligible for, and it's based on what year of study you are in college.
Thank you. So a great question is, who can get federal student aid? And it depends on where you go. A community college, a four-year institution, especially within the state of North Carolina, but there are eligibility requirements that are linked here at studentaid.gov/eligibility. And I would also encourage you all to go to the school's website. So if you are planning to go to UNC Pembroke, go to their website and they will break it down for you very easily. So they're making sure that you are a U.S. citizen, a national or eligible non-citizen, someone who has a high school diploma or an equivalent, eligible degree, certificate programs in college and career school, a student that has a valid Social Security number, and satisfactory academic progress in college and career. But again, I urge you to please reach out to your financial aid folks at any community college or university. They are always happy to help and answer any questions, especially if you are planning to attend their school. But even if you aren't, they are still more than happy to answer any questions you may have about if you can get federal student aid. So when we're thinking about who can get other types of financial aid as far as state scholarships, private scholarships, and so on and so forth, what is the best way, Timothy, for folks to find out about UNC Pembroke and their special aid at your school?
So when it comes to the private scholarships, the scholarships we have here at UNC Pembroke, we have what's called a Brave portal, and we keep all of our scholarships there. So we actually have 327 scholarships that's eligible. Students are eligible to receive here at UNC Pembroke, and we're able to go in, do a general application, and then it automatically applies you for the scholarship that you're eligible for. So for us, again, it's about doing that FAFSA, and then we actually look at those and those different outside normal financial ways. It's not normal, like CARES, HERF, some of those outside of things that you normally won't see in your financial aid package. We use the FAFSA to determine who qualifies for those based on the need. There's some great websites, and CFNC is one of those, to be able to look for scholarships from outside scholarships. For that, we have CFNC.org, we have fastweb.org, we have brokescholar.com. Those are some great websites to go and actually look for scholarships. And some of them have over 100 and 200 scholarships you can look for that. Again, outside, most of the time with the qualifications, it's about having the FAFSA. And then your school will notify you of any other requirements. Like, for example, we got some funding coming for this summer that you have to have a FAFSA on file, and you have to have a FAFSA on file and be enrolled in classes and be able to get additional funding.
Absolutely. Thank you for the CFNC plug. You're exactly right. They have amazing scholarships. There are filters there so you can kind of sort through the scholarships that they have available. They're consistently updated as well. So I appreciate that plug. And make sure, again, that you are reaching out to financial aid reps at colleges, universities. You're more than welcome to reach out to folks at CFNC or SEAA to find out more about scholarships, student aid, and any specific questions that you all may have. So Timothy, this gets, and I know you and I are used to this, but this can get confusing to folks who are not in the financial aid world. We always say EFC, COA, FAFSA, right? We have all of these letters that mean these big things. Could you break down the difference between, or exactly what EFC is and what COA is, and how that impacts the student that is planning to enroll in college?
Sure. So the expected family contribution is really talks about how much your family can actually contribute to your education when you complete the FAFSA. At the end of the FAFSA, you will see that there gives you an EFC number. That number is how the financial aid office determines how much funding you'll receive based on that EFC number. So if you're a Pell eligible EFC 0 to 5846, then we know that you're eligible for Pell. Anything out of 5846, we know that you're not eligible for Pell as far as that. So that's how we determine if you're eligible for grants, federal or state grants, based on your EFC. Cost of attendance it varies by college. Actually, our cost of attendance includes tuition and fees, books and supplies, miscellaneous, transportation, any of those costs that we think that you will incur as a student at our university or college. That's what's called a cost of attendance. So each school develops their cost of attendance based on averages. You know, of course, if you plan to stay off campus or on campus, you have a different cost of attendance because on campus is a lot cheaper than off campus housing. So we take that in consideration when we do that. Of course, like I said, EFC comes from the FAFSA form. That's what Department of Ed gives you at the very end of your FAFSA. It tells you what your family can contribute. The COA is what, or the cost of attendance is what the school determines. Each school is individual, so you're not going to go from one school to the other and have the same cost of attendance because it's not the same elements. It's the same elements, it's not the same cost from school to school. And why that is important is because when we take your cost of attendance that the school develops, we minus your EFC, what the Department of Ed says that your family can contribute to your education. And then that's what we call financial need. And that is how we determine in the financial aid office by that need, how much need-based aid that you are eligible for. Need-based aid comes in the forms of grants, scholarships, institutional funding, subsidized loans that the government pays your interest while you're in school. Those are all need-based funding. And so we have to have that number so we'll be able to see what kind of needs you have when we start awarding your file.
Thank you for all of that. And I wanted to plug an NC Promise School. I know that you all at UNC Pembroke are an NC Promise School. So as that pertains to cost of ed or cost of attendance rather, what can you share with us about what it means to be a North Carolina Promise School?
So for North Carolina Promise School, a great thing our legislator has done for our school and a couple other of our schools in the UNC system. So NC Promise School means that our tuition for in-state students for in-state undergrad students is $500 a semester. So if you take 12 hours here at UNC Pembroke for your tuition, you're gonna pay $500 flat, $500 rate. If you're out of state and you come to UNC Pembroke, you'll pay a flat for undergrad in-state. Undergrad out of state. Your tuition will be $2,500 for the semester, and that's 12 hours. So you can come to UNC Pembroke for a full semester, in-state $500, out-of-state $2,500 for your tuition. Of course, there's fees and room and board and stuff that's added to that, but that is a great saver, a cost saver for you as a student to be able to come to an NC Promise school and pay $500 tuition for 12. So ultimately, at the end of the 4 years, you've saved almost $10,400 if you're an in-state student, almost $40,000 if you're an out-of-state student for the tuition that you would have charged with us not being an NC Promise school. And so that plays into the cost of attendance because our cost of attendance is a lot lower because we have a lot lower tuition and something that's affordable for you to be able to do each and every day. So that's the great advantages of being an NC Promise school.
Absolutely, absolutely.
And I will plug one more thing in there. Our governor was on campus today. We had a building dedication. Our governor of North Carolina was here, and that's one thing he said is that that's a great money saver for students, and he wants to make sure that we have affordable education or affordable education for every student. So that NC Promises really helps make that dream come true.
Absolutely. And UNC Pembroke is one North Carolina Promise school, along with Elizabeth City State, Western Carolina, and I believe Fayetteville State is another and rather new NC Promise school. So if any of you all are interested in these schools, they're extremely affordable and wonderful institutions to go to. So thank you so much for that, Timothy. You briefly mentioned what the Pell Grant is as it pertains to the cost of attendance. And you also touched a bit on the difference between subsidized and unsubsidized loans. I know that can get confusing. What folks should know is that in order to figure out if you are eligible for the federal Pell Grant, which at this point, 22-23, is $6,895, you have to fill out the FAFSA. I know Timothy already stated this, but it's so important to fill out the FAFSA. A lot of times we get folks who say, oh, I'm not sure if I should complete the FAFSA. Maybe I make too much. I probably won't get any. It never hurts to try. You can always fill out the FAFSA and figure out whether you get some money or you don't, but it's better to try than to not. Timothy, can you one more time go over the difference between a subsidized and an unsubsidized loan?
I will, and let me say before I say that, let me plug in.
Yes.
If you are dual FAFSA and you're not eligible for any grants and you get loans, loans are considered financial aid, even though it's not a grant program and it's not free funding. It does fall under the financial aid umbrella. I think some students get confused thinking that because they don't get a free grant that they don't get financial aid, and that's not the case. Student loans are considered financial aid as well as far as grants are concerned too. So, so the difference between a subsidized loan and unsubsidized loan is really this. So direct subsidized loan means that the government is paying your interest while you're in school. So as long as you're in school and you have subsidized loans, the government will pay your interest until you graduate, or if you one graduate or you stop attending at least half time. So then you go into what's called a grace period, which you have 6 months grace period. An unsubsidized loan is that the government is not paying your interest while you're in school. What I tell students about that is that yes, that truly is not, you truly don't have to pay those back until 6 months after you graduate or 6 months after you stop attending at least half time. But the government will still send you a bill in the mail that says, hey, Susie, you owe $1 for interest. So you can decide to pay that dollar now, or over time it's going to accumulate. That dollar will accumulate and go up to maybe $1 today, $10 next week. So I do tell folks, if you get a bill in the mail and it says, hey, here's an interest payment, it's $1. Go ahead and pay that dollar. Go ahead and start paying on those unsubsidized loans, so it won't generate at the end, because again, all that will be compound interest at the end. But that's the difference. Unsubsidized means the government pays the interest while you're in school. Unsubsidized means they do not pay the interest while you're in school.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. I know that can become frustrating and a bit confusing as well for students and their families. This is another plug for the Federal Student Aid Estimator. This is just a helpful tool. And as a side note, this presentation is linked in the handout section on the right-hand side of your screen. So you should see a little box that says handouts, and this presentation is there. So all of these links that we've embedded in the presentation, you can go ahead and download this for yourself and play around with some of these websites to see what you get and if you find anything interesting or helpful for your journey or your child's journey. How much state, school, and private scholarship money can I get? We did this presentation on Monday, and it came up that there are a number of news outlets and newspapers and magazines that love to promote students who received $1 million in scholarships as they were applying to school. Timothy, can they keep the $1 million in scholarships?
And you mean on top of their other aid they're getting?
Right.
Yeah, so it all depends on, especially with scholarship money. We're not going to let you keep $1 million. I mean, but we will apply scholarships to your account, apply how much money that you're eligible for. But just keep in mind that when you get additional aid from outside or other, like state aid or scholarships or institutional aid, we have to make sure we adjust your award so you're not considered what we call over awarded. You don't get additional funds that we need to later take back. So we will monitor that. But when you complete the FAFSA, you are considered for state aid and also federal aid. But once we put it on your account and you bring in scholarships or maybe $1 million in scholarships, if you do $1 million, call me so I can get some money too. But we will look at your package to make sure you're not over awarded by the federal government guidelines.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And again, once you fill out the FAFSA, you will be awarded state aid should you be eligible in your financial aid office. So you will also put the schools that you're applying to. Those financial aid offices will send you an award letter as well, but we'll get to that in just a second. So when you're starting to create your FAFSA, you're going to go to studentaid.gov/login, and you will have to create a username and a password. And this is your FSA ID. So this is something that you will have to hold on to, keep safe, and fill out the FAFSA every single year. So just because you fill it out one year, you have to do it the very next year when it opens again, October 1st. That's an important date. The FAFSA opens every single year on October the 1st. So make sure you keep that in mind. You need to keep your FSA ID and password close to you. However, if it's been some time since you have created your FSA ID and password, here's the link so you can reset your password. We know that we forget, and we know we shouldn't write things down or put them in our phones because we want to make sure that we are protecting our information. So no worries if you created an FSA ID and password some years ago or maybe months ago and you just simply forgot. Here's the link that you can use to help reset your FSA ID and your password. But that's the first step on how you are going to complete your FAFSA.
Let me put a plug in right here for a moment.
Absolutely.
Just remember when you're completing your setting up your FSA ID that you validate your phone number and your email address. We have a lot of students who can't remember their stuff. They came to school, they've been out for 10 years plus, and now they're coming back. And the FSA ID is a lifetime ID. It doesn't change. So once you create it, it's there. So just make sure when you're doing an FSA ID, you validate your phone number, you validate your email address. So if you do have to go in to recreate it, you can get your information by those two means, either a phone number or an email address. And so that's what I tell folks is that most folks are going there and do the FSA ID and not validate, or they validate their phone number and their email address and they change it the next week. And so it's really not a great idea. So if you go in there and if you do change your email address and you do change your phone number, go to your FSA ID, log in, and actually change that information in your FSA ID. So if you do have to come back at future times to get your information, you have some way of validating your information for the FSA ID.
That's a wonderful point. Thank you so much for that. It can get frustrating, as we know the FAFSA is not necessarily folks' favorite part of the college application process, but it is one of the most, if not the most important piece of the college application process. So we want to ensure that we eliminate as much stress as we can, and passwords can certainly be a part of that stress if we can't remember. So I appreciate that point, Timothy. You're going to go forward and you have your FSA ID and password, and you need to start gathering your documents. So the FAFSA is filled with tons of questions about income, social security numbers, and so on and so forth. So you want to gather your documents to ensure that everything is correct. Now, I will say that there's a wonderful tool within the FAFSA. It's the data retrieval tool, which is phenomenal. I recently completed a FAFSA for myself, and I just had to press a couple of buttons, and my information from me filing my taxes some years ago was able to just fill in to my FAFSA. I didn't have to worry about transposing numbers or if I was using the correct tax year or not. It was really, really phenomenal. Now, some folks may not be able to do that, but I did want to plug in that there is an IRS data retrieval tool that you could use. But if you're unable to, go ahead and gather those documents that your accountant or whomever that filed your taxes gave you, and that will be helpful for you going forward. Timothy, have you seen the IRS data retrieval tool be a little finicky potentially? I've heard that in the past, that sometimes it's a little finicky with maybe street names or hyphenated things and so on and so forth.
Yeah, I would say one of the issues we have with students when they do the data retrieval tool is that they do not, you have to key in the information exactly as it appears on your tax returns. And so that's one of the major issues is folks are keying and they'll put, like you just said, the street address. They'll have drive on their tax returns, but they type drive in the data retrieval tool and it can't connect because it doesn't match. So I always tell students to make sure when you do the data retrieval tool, try to have a copy of your taxes with you and you type exactly like it is. And I mean caps, letters, and all. If it's capitalized on your taxes, capitalize it when you do the data retrieval tool so everything matches and they can match up your information. One thing else I would plug into there is that when you are, so if your parents are married filing separate or married filing jointly because they're married, when the data retrieval tool pulls that information into your FAFSA, it pulls everything in except the wages. It doesn't know how to separate the wages for you on your FAFSA when it's transferred over from the IRS to the FAFSA form. So most of the time, well, actually every time, if you have a parent that's married filing separate or married filing jointly, or you're a student, an independent student who's married and file married filing separate, married filing jointly, the data retrieval tool will pull all your information over except your wages. You have to key those in. one red flag for financial aid offices is when you put rounded numbers. So if you put like 50,000 and 70,000, we know you can't make exactly $50,000 or exactly $70,000. You want to have some differences. So just make sure you could always key in the right and accurate information in your FAFSA when you do those. But the data retrieval tool, we tell students all the time, is a great tool. Please use it if you can, because again, like Nicole said, you don't want to transpose numbers and that kind of stuff. You want to make sure don't give financial aid officers any reason to have to question your FAFSA for conflicting information.
Absolutely, absolutely. I mentioned this earlier, but every single year, the FAFSA opens on October 1st. Every single year. I think it's important to mention that because it's best to complete your FAFSA as early as possible. Aid does not necessarily run out, but the earlier that you complete your FAFSA, the more likely that you are to receive grants and state funds and so on and so forth. So I do encourage you to fill out the FAFSA as soon as possible. I would also like to point out that you will see across a number of institutions websites that March 1st is the priority deadline for your FAFSA to be completed. That is not necessarily true for every institution. So some community colleges will accept the FAFSA into May, sometimes into June. Some universities may accept the FAFSA past the March 1 deadline. So again, I encourage you to talk to the school that you wish to attend, financial aid advisors, and they will make sure to let you know what their priority deadline is for you to complete the FAFSA. Timothy, is that true for UNC Pembroke as well? Do you all kind of stick with the March 1 deadline, or do you all have a different deadline?
So at UNC Pembroke, we really don't have a deadline. We do have the priority deadline of March 1st. So I tell folks to make sure you try to get your FAFSA completed by March 1st. We will accept FAFSAs after March 1st, but it's less likely for you to get any state aid because of the fact state aid is first come, first serve. So when people do their FAFSAs in October, November, December, January, February, and March, those students, when we start to package those students, because we package by FAFSA date, and that's an important point too, is people think maybe you financial aid officers award by last name or award by first name, and if I'm a Bullard, I'm gonna get the money first before a Sampson's gonna get their money. That's not the case at UNC Pembroke. We package by date. So whenever your FAFSA arrived in our office is how your FAFSA is picked up and awarded. So it's very important that you do your FAFSA early. And the federal government did a great thing a couple years ago when they went back 2 years for tax data. So there shouldn't be any issues. You shouldn't be waiting for your taxes to be filed. You should have the information you need to get your FAFSA completed. And I don't know if we're talking about, I don't know if we're talking about professional judgment in this or not. Nicole, do you know?
No, but please go for it. I think that's a wonderful point.
But so you might look at your FAFSA or you look at your taxes 2 years ago and say, oh my God, my parents made $100,000 and now they're making only $20,000 this year. That's fine. Use your FAFSA, use the taxes that the FAFSA is asking you for, and then go to your financial aid offices and ask if they do professional judgments. So here in the Office of Financial Aid, once you submit your FAFSA, you can do what's a professional judgment. And what we do in the office is have you to bring in your last 3 years or 2 or 3 years of tax information, and we will choose the best year that benefits you. Just remember, as you're talking to financial aid offices, that their goal is to help you. We are here for you. So whatever is best for you as a student is what we want for you, and make sure you get the amount of aid that you need to complete your education. But just don't let that be a deterrence or discourage you when you do your FAFSA because your mom and dad made so much money or you made so much money, now you don't make that. There is a process in each financial aid office to help us to go back and reevaluate where you currently stand when you as far as your finances and how much you can actually apply for school and pay for school.
Thank you for that. I think that's a wonderful point, one that I actually forgot to put in this presentation. So thank you for bringing that up. I would like to add, before we move on, the difference between your FAFSA being completed and your FAFSA being submitted. So we want to make sure that your FAFSA is submitted. That means everyone that needs to sign, if it's you or your parents or everyone, everything is completed and it's also submitted. Okay, so make sure that you watch for the confirmation page that says that your FAFSA form has been submitted. Completed is nice, but it's not done yet. It needs to be submitted.
And one thing I would add, can I add one more thing? I'm sorry.
Sure, no, go for it.
And when you submit your FAFSA, don't go in and make changes unless a financial aid officer tells you to go in and make changes. Some of the issues we have with students is that they go in and make multiple changes, and your FAFSA can be changed, and then it'll be changed, and then it can flag us for conflicting information, flag you for too many transactions. So when you submit that FAFSA the first time, leave it there, let it do what it needs to do, and then notify your financial aid office if there's any changes you need to make. Before you make them, please consult your financial aid office.
And that's exactly what this slide was about. So thank you for that. Don't update any information that was correct on the day that you signed your FAFSA. So if something was correct today and it changes tomorrow, that's okay. As long as the information was correct on the day that you signed your FAFSA, things should be fine. However, as Timothy mentioned, please still go to the financial aid office and just let them know should anything change that you just want to make them aware of, and they will be able to assess whether you should go and make any adjustments or changes within your FAFSA form.
And can I add one more point? I'm sorry.
Nick, go for it.
Also is that, for example, if you are a student and you're completing a FAFSA and you get married 5 days later after you complete the FAFSA, you can't go back and change your FAFSA to married and become from a dependent to an independent student. It doesn't work that way. So as Nicole just said, is that it's as of the day you complete your FAFSA, what is your current status as of that day? And then we award your FAFSA and process your FAFSA based on that information. I've had so many students come to my office and say, hey, Tim, I put on my FAFSA, I was single and I was a dependent. Now I put my parents on my FAFSA. Now I'm married. Now I can be independent. That's not the case. It doesn't work that way. If you were dependent when you filled out your FAFSA, you weren't married yet, then you're still considered dependent for the entire aid year.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you so much for that. You need to also make sure that you watch for emails or letters from the schools that you are considering. They will send you your student aid, or not your student aid report, but they will send you your aid letter that will break down for you the funding that they can give you, be it the funding from the university, special scholarships, and so on and so forth. Immediately after, about 2 to 3 days usually after you complete your FAFSA, you'll get your SAR, S-A-R, which is a student aid report, and the universities will also get that. So there's no need, unless they specifically ask you, to send them your SAR that you have received via email. It's just simply a breakdown, a summary of your FAFSA, but the schools themselves will send you an aid letter that says, congratulations, here's what we will be able to award you based on your completed FAFSA. So make sure you watch your emails for that information as well, your SAR and your aid letter award from the school or schools.
Let me plug in something here as well. And just like you just said about checking your email, make sure that you find out from your financial aid offices what their preferred method of communication is to the students. I know here at UNC Pembroke, we don't use your Gmail or your Yahoo that you put on your application. We actually use your Brave Mail that we give you when you get accepted as a student. So just actually check with your financial aid offices to see what their preferred method of communication is. If they're going to send it to your student email, if they're going to send it to your personal email, because sometimes students don't get things, or don't get offers, or don't get award letters or scholarship opportunities, or whatever the case may be, because they didn't check the email that the financial aid office was sending it to. So just follow up with your financial aid offices about that.
Absolutely. And with that, I have also seen that a lot of universities prefer to send it to your school email. So as he stated, your Brave email, or if you go to UNCG, your Spartan email. But they also, all of the universities have some form of Blackboard or portal where you can register for classes, and you can also see your aid there. Again, please make sure that you are communicating, as Timothy stated, with your financial aid folks at the school that you plan to attend, to make sure that you're keeping up with the information and you can learn how to accept or decline the aid that they're offering you. So here are some resources that are phenomenal. Should you have any questions, or you just need something a little bit more detailed, as you see all of these CFNC websites, Timothy did a phenomenal job in plugging this a bit earlier. CFNC is a wonderful place to start. It has everything that you could ask for: scholarships, pay for college, FAFSA assistance, special attention to adult and non-traditional learners. It has everything from professional development and career tracks that you can take. So I would encourage everyone to start at CFNC and just see what you can find. There are so many wonderful resources on the CFNC website. And following that, CFNC also has a YouTube channel that is beautifully organized with wonderful collaborative videos that they've done and trainings that they've done, that you can go back and kind of fast forward or slow down through that content. I thoroughly enjoy it and direct many students and families to the CFNC page and also their website or their YouTube channel, excuse me. Here's our brand new page on CFNC that we're so excited about, and I'm going to allow Timothy to talk a little bit about what's going to happen on Saturday. But we have started this adult and non-traditional learners page within CFNC. And so essentially what an adult learner or non-traditional learner is if you did not graduate if you graduated high school and did not immediately matriculate into a college or university, or if you did and for one reason or another you decided to take a break, step back, whatever that may be. So this is a wonderful site to start with. Excuse me. And on Saturday, this Saturday, April 30th, from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m., UNC Pembroke will be having an on-site event to help support high school students, adult learners, non-traditional learners. They're going to have a number of wonderful things going on there. So Timothy, I will let you explain a little bit further what will happen this Saturday and what folks can expect to see.
So I'll say here at UNCP, our financial aid office, we are very excited that NC, SCAA, and CFNC has partnered with us to be able to have this event on Saturday, April 30th from 10 to 2. We will be doing a lot of things that day. So we will have, we'll of course be doing FAFSAs, being able to assist you with FAFSAs. Even if you're not coming to UNC Pembroke, come out. If you need help with your FAFSA, we'll be glad to be there to help you, to assist you with your FAFSA. Again, I always tell folks is that, yes, I want you to come to UNC Pembroke, but I'm here to help you. And if that means you're going to a UNC Charlotte and you need help with your FAFSA, come Saturday. We'll be glad to assist you in getting that FAFSA completed for the school you want to go to. But for UNC Pembroke, we'll have FAFSA completion that day. We'll have our nursing mobile unit out here, our nice big mobile unit for nursing to do our FAFSAs in. We'll actually have on-site admissions, on-site registration, on-site advising, and so you can be able to come in to UNCP on Saturday, complete your application, leave with a schedule in hand, ready for the summer or the fall. So we are very excited about Saturday, and being able to have folks to come and be able to assist them. Again, if you're not coming to UNCP, that's fine as well. Just come. We will assist you with your FAFSAs to make sure your FAFSAs are completed. Again, all of our end goals in our financial aid offices across the state and across the United States is just to make sure that we're doing the best we possibly can for you, and that you'll get the best possible funding that you need for you to accomplish your goals, your education goals in the future. But we are so excited about Saturday. Hope you can join us. Again, even if you're not coming to UNCP, come out. We'll help you do your FAFSA.
Thank you so much. I'm excited for the event too. Timothy and his team have been hard at work. We will be able to see the new business building that they just unveiled today, as he stated earlier, with the governor there. So we hope to see you. The registration link is on the website. But again, if you just happen to be in the area and you want to pop in, we welcome you, and we're excited to see you and to assist you. Timothy, thank you so much for having this conversation with me about financial aid, FAFSA, and everything in between. I really appreciate it.
No problem. Well, let me plug in one more thing for Saturday. We'll also, what I missed, we also have our departments here as well in our departmental fair. So if you don't know what you want to go to school to be when you grow up, or if you already grew up and you don't know what you want to be yet, come out and our departments will be glad to talk with you and help you make that decision on Saturday as well.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, Timothy, I do not see any questions in the question box, so I think that means that you did an A+ job, and I would agree. Thank you all so much for joining us. We hope to see you soon. Should you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to myself at outreach@ncscaa.edu. I'm sure you can find Timothy's email address on the UNC Pembroke website, but we certainly hope to see you this Saturday. I hope you all have a wonderful evening.